So let's give it a start. Welcome to all of you. I guess there's no need to introduce this panel. We have been here before talking about the DNI initiative. But anyway, my name is Andre Kassaman. I'm delighted to be moderating this session today. And with me, two experts, one on the legal and tech side and one on the tech and legal side. I think the two aspects need to be combined these days. It's so important to align the regulatory and the legal aspects with the technology evolutions. And this is going to be our focus today. I'm delighted to welcome Sean Edwards, Chair of ITFA today, who will remind us of the DNI initiative and the key deliverables that ITFA produced as part of this initiative. And Joel Scriven, Solutions Director and Head of European Operations at China Systems. I was explaining this morning to some ITFA members the reasons why we get some people on stage and others we get less on stage. Actually, the reason is just because we want on the ITFA side to showcase progress in the industry. If any of you on the bank side, on the corporate side, on the vendor side, want to showcase your progress on the DNI initiative or the TFD initiative, on those two strategic initiatives we set up at the level of the ITFA board, we really welcome you to show them and outline them during those sessions, which we can organize at any point in time. So, and definitely the content here is thought leadership from the work being performed by different people. And definitely this material is not a commercial show. It's aiming at sharing how value propositions can be developed by combining various technologies, in this case, in order to achieve the digitization and even more of negotiable instruments. We're gonna get into that in the next hour. So I invite you, as usual, to enter your questions through the Q&A, to provide any comment via the chat. This session is being recorded in case you have to leave or you want to share it afterwards. We're going to put it in the ITFA member area anyway afterwards, and you're going to get access to it freely. With this, I'd like to now invite Sean to introduce us the DNI initiative and what he sees happening in the market and how ITFA can contribute to digitizing those negotiable instruments. Sean,
thank you, Andre. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for attending. I think probably a lot of you, it's first time back. Maybe some of you even doing this from your physical offices. Who knows? It's a lot of change happening. There's a lot of change here as well, of course, but in a way, it's a sort of, and in our Bristol conference, we call this Back to the Future. So we're going to have a panel on this in Bristol. The week of the 4th of October, it's actually the 6th to the 8th is our conference. We call this Back to the Future because although what we're talking about here is absolutely cutting edge technology, the underlying instruments that we are now able to digitize and to digitize in a legally valid way. And Andre made the very important point that you can't really separate, at least in terms of commercial viability, you can't separate the law from the technology. But what we're talking about here really is about bringing bills of exchange, promissory notes, and bills of lading, of course, but they're not immediately, they're not financial instruments per se. They're part of often a financial package, but not in themselves financial instruments. What we're really talking about here is bringing bills of exchange and promissory notes into the 21st century, and they are ideal. So I've said many times, they are really ideal instruments for our short-term trade finance market because surprisingly, you know, people don't want to boil the ocean. They don't want to take big risks, but they do at the same time want to have the operational benefits. They want to have the scope that comes with the new technology, but the underlying instruments that they need to deal with, they're very comfortable with having instruments that have been around for centuries, maybe even actually millennia. I'm sure this is something that the ancient Phoenicians, who seem to have done everything in trade finance at some point, did way back in the day. And you know, the reason for that is twofold, really. Firstly, they have centuries of precedent. They're well understood. And the second point is they're well understood internationally. So the bills of exchange and promissory notes exist in some shape or form really in most developed markets around the world. And as I've said in previous webinars and seminars, really that's part of the colonial legacy of the British and the French empires. And this is the sort of stuff that they left behind, one of the better things they left behind. And so they're well understood. When the forfeiting market really started to open up the emerging markets in the 1980s, they were thrashing around for something that would be acceptable to Western bankers, but it also existed locally. And this is where negotiable instruments came in, because whether you go to Africa, sub-Saharan, or Northern Africa, or you go to the Americas, as I say, these instruments exist in some shape or form. So the market, if you like, is evolving, but it's evolving to re-embrace this kind of technology, and clients do want this. So those of you who've seen the work that we did with the ICC to lobby the Law Commission in the UK will know that we commissioned from Coriolis Technologies a survey of the UK market, UK SME market, and the very positive response was that these kinds of instruments, especially promissory notes, are highly desirable. When you add into the mix bills of lading as well, which are very similar legally but serve a slightly different purpose, you can see what a powerful sort of package this is. So this slide that we've had around for a while talks about what's in it for the banks, and talks about differentiation and the business opportunity. And I think now that we've got to the point where I would say it's not so much about differentiating yourself, it's about actually making sure you're not being left behind. So what is this wonderful technology? We go to the next slide. So, in ITFA, we like the theory. As many of you know, I'm a lawyer, so I love all the legal stuff, but we're also very much about creating practical solutions to real problems. And this is as part of the DNI initiative, we have partnered with a company which is also part of Joel's offering, Enigio, who have a functionality called Trace Original. And essentially what this is a natively digital instrument. That could be a promissory note, bill of exchange, or indeed a bill of lading. And I should just point out that actually, as we were talking earlier before we started, the technology providers for this kind of instrument aren't limited to Enigio or just a handful. The actual technology that underlies this is relatively straightforward. Of course, it needs to be commercialized, and there's always bugs that you need to iron out, but it's relatively straightforward. And those platforms, and a number of them who aren't currently in this area, who actually, excuse me, have the ability to produce on a blockchain, to produce documents or transmit them through a blockchain, will actually, once the law changes, have the ability to do this in a legally valid way. So Enigio does this. On top of that, of course, the important thing, as you know, is that documents have to be authenticated. They have to be signed, of course. They have to be they have to have all the necessary references, as you know, for promissory notes, amount certain on a date certain. They have to be signed. All of that is enabled through digital signing technology, but they also have to be authenticated. And what Trace Original incorporates is essentially a notary service. If we go to the next slide, so this is really all part of a matrix, if you like, of a perfect storm of offerings, if you like. So we look at the legal side, the technology side, but also the technical standards side. So here at the bottom left, you'll see the DDocs guidelines for trade documents, which appear in our manual to digital trade instruments, and we'll give you a slide on that at the end. That's available free to all ITFA members. We're in the second edition of that. We've updated it. So the technical standards around that are in DDocs. It's been adopted by the ICC's DSI, Digital Standards Initiative in Singapore, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. Currently, at the moment, we're at this point where we talk about EPUs as contractual instruments because the law has not yet changed. So the law will change. The law has changed actually in some countries. It's changed in Singapore. It's changed in Abu Dhabi, where we helped ADGM and Abu Dhabi Global Markets to actually change their law to be in line with MLETR, the Model Law for Electronic Transferable Records, which is an UNCITRAL, United Nations Commission for International Trade Law. It's an UNCITRAL model law that's increasingly being adopted by a number of countries, being looked at by various countries in the Americas as well. It's currently law in only a few countries. Singapore is one, ADGM, Bahrain. In the UK, we will not be moving to adoption of MELITA, but we'll be having essentially an English, a British solution, which fundamentally will give us the same result. And that's really because of the nature of the common law and how it's arisen and various problems around possession, which need to be solved by actually passing primary legislation. So currently in our manual, you'll see, and I think we have it in a few slides, the form of these, the wording. Here we go. So this is the EPU, the Electronic Payment Undertaking. So what this needs at the moment, this needs to be done effectively using a contractual workaround. So as you know, for a negotiable instrument is conditional, irrevocable. It's also transmissible. That's hence negotiable. And at the moment, we can't do that in its purest form. The law we think will change next year, however, and it's really important. I've mentioned those countries that do have MLETR, but it's really important that actually we get a change in English law, not because whatever some might think Britain is a great, one of the biggest trading nations in the world, but because English law is one of the most widely used systems in global trade. So a lot of trade documents are actually governed by English law, even if the underlying goods never touch the UK. So it's really important we get that change in law. But for the moment, what we have is the EPU, and that requires the contractual instrument that we create to be irrevocable and unconditional. It is transmissible to a holder in due course, and very importantly, there's no defense to non-payment. So I think we have in the next slide, so we show how this could look, both for a promissory note and a bill of exchange. So this is template wording, which it's been validated by our lawyer Sullivan and works under English law. We hope that that's a temporary solution because it's not the optimal solution. It's a good solution and it does work, and Joel is going to talk about that. But as soon as the law changes, we'll move on to essentially an optimal form of these two kinds of instruments. Go to the thank you. So as I said, all of this is available to ITFA members in our negotiable instruments, in our manual to negotiable instruments, which is part of our DNI initiative. So please look that up. It's everything I've spoken about is there in a great deal more detail. I think I'll leave it at that because the star of the show is Joel. I'm going to show us how it actually works, but please feel free to ask questions now or at the end. Thanks, Andre.
Thanks, Sean, for the introduction. And thanks, ITFA, for giving me the opportunity to share the work we've done. I hope everyone can see my PowerPoint presentation. Yes?
Yes.
We've got quite a bit to cover, so I'm apologizing up front. It's going to be quite high speed. If people want separate presentations afterwards of what we've shown, that can be arranged. So first, a couple of slides to introduce the actual demonstration of the system. So we've looked at a paper world business case, and we've actually said, how can we digitally optimize this? And we've actually taken a documentary collection combined with receivables financing. And we've digitally re-engineered the product actually to fully remove paper based on omni-channel design principles. What that means, I will explain that at the end of the presentation. So, documentary collections. Most people who work in trade know this product quite well. It's, to simplify, it's a paper-based procedure. The banks are actually being used as mailboxes in the exchange of trade documents. An exporter gives his bank the instruction to actually involve another bank in the physical handover of documents to control the process. So asking another bank, can you hand over those documents against acceptance of a bill of exchange or against payment? Fully paper-based. As you can see in the picture, there's minimum 4 parties involved, but it can actually be 5, because in terms of the collecting bank, if the importer does not have an account with the collecting bank, you often have a presenting bank as well. So 5 parties, all being used by courier service to push documents around the world. That takes time, that costs money, so that's clear. The context of a collection, again, just a bit of clarification, is typically used where an open account is considered to be too risky for the supplier. He still wants to use a bank in the collection and the handover of those documents, especially if a bill of lading is involved, which is a document of title. He wants to gain some control by using a bank to hand over those documents against a financial commitment. And on the other side, an LC is not used in some cases because the importer says, I'm not interested in providing a credit line or providing any collaterals to actually allow the issuing bank to send out the LC. So it's something in the middle between open account and LC. The fact is, it's a product which at a global level has seen volumes declining. What are the weaknesses? I won't go into too much detail because it's clear what the weaknesses are. Just the reliance on paper. It will take, depending on location of the parties involved, it takes easily between 15 to 20 days to send documents with courier services between 4 or 5 parties. Not to mention the consequences of those delays. In some cases, depending on location, the goods may arrive before the documents even, which means that the importer may have to pay demurrage charges at the port, or he may have to pay charges to his bank to issue a shipping guarantee to release the goods. And of course, involving bills of exchange and bills of lading, which are negotiable instruments, it's too slow and it's also too risky. It's crazy, in fact, that we have to still today, if you really think about it in isolation, in the advanced world we live in, have to rely on courier service to get a decision on someone wants to pay or accept the bill of exchange, and that controls the entire release of goods process. I find it quite crazy. So what have we done? We selected that collection product, and we said, how can we digitally reduce the risk for the parties involved? And I just included the definition of trade here. Trade refers to the exchange between parties of goods against money or money's equivalent. And we said, what is the fastest and the most straightforward way to achieve this? Goods, services. The one thing, a typical document in trade which can be utilized to control this is a bill of lading. Money or money's equivalent, that's where the bill of exchange come in. These are 2 key documents in trade, and what we've done is actually we've created, call it a digital match made in heaven. I've often referred to it in that way. So we've re-engineered this physical handover process in digital mode. Again, to make sure that people do not think that we're naive, and I believe Sean has explained that sufficiently, we are very much aware of the legal dependencies, yeah? And we are also monitoring, of course, all activity. And there are already a number of countries, like this morning on the Hyperledger presentation, ADGM was explaining what is possible. So we're definitely following that. But in the meantime, we still are looking at contractual solutions. And that the EPU, which is meant to be a temporary one, is an example of that. And in fact, the rule books being used by EBL providers are also an example, because you also have to sign up to a legal agreement to access the platform. The key thing is, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty detail, and that's why I want to explain where our strategy lies. We want to target trade chains between jurisdictions with an active digital trade agenda. So it's not a coincidence that we signed up with Enigio and also with CargoX, because the people who know CargoX will know that they've been appointed by the Egyptian government to be used as a channel to comply with all the requirements of the customs authorities for all inbound cargo into Egypt. And that's an important thing, because it means that exporters have to submit documents to their platform, and that creates an opportunity. How can this paper model be optimized? obvious things, we're obviously using APIs to orchestrate the collaborative workflows between our platform and other physical and financial supply chain participants. Doing that, we can actually source directly data from reliable sources such as single windows for trade facilitation. It's probably, I don't know whether you've seen the term before, but it's typically endorsed by the WTO, also by the United Nations. And Egypt is one of the examples of that, which is actually, it's creating a business to government environment. So importers and exporters have to submit documents to that platform. It provides a perfect ecosystem to actually provide business to business and also bank to business services in such an environment. It reduces the amount of KYC you need to do because the government, of course, is also working KYC provider to actually vet all the parties on board onto the platform. Using digital signatures or seals in the case of we work with legal entities, you're going to see that in the demonstration. And as Sean has already explained, we're using a digital notary to ensure and verify integrity, originality, and ownership of documents. The other thing, which is actually, I wouldn't call it a side effect, but I believe this is going to become increasingly important. It already is important today, but the benefit of being able to work with digital documents is it becomes a lot easier to cross-check documents for trade-based money laundering purposes. Okay, the introduction to the demo, because I need to keep an eye on the clock. The setup, you're not going to be seeing all the parties, but what we've done is we have signed up to the CargoX platform and we created 4 parties on their platform: a carrier, an exporter, a bank, and an importer to support the EBL, the electronic bill of lading exchanges. You won't be seeing in a demo the carrier. The process is going to start at the point in time that the bill of lading has already been created, shipment has taken place, and the exporter has provided access to his bank for financing purposes. So that is the context. The exporter requires financing. How can he obtain that? You will be using a digital bill of exchange, but he's involving his bank in the process because the trigger is going to be the acceptance of the bill of exchange, which is going to trigger the finance. So you will be seeing exporter, bank, and importer exchanges. The system we'll be using at the bottom are obviously CargoX for the EBL, and we're using Trace Original of Enigio to manage all the exchanges around the digital bill of exchange. And then, of course, our back office and our portal solution. Our portal solution is optional, but in this flow, we've shown what we can do. We're going to be taking a case where we have an export from the UAE, from Dubai, shipping goods from Dubai to the UK. We've taken 2 countries. I could have taken Egypt as importing country, but I've taken Dubai and the UK. The bank of the supplier is also in the UAE. In terms of the demo processing flow, I explained this, but you will be able to see this afterwards on the presentation. This is just one specific scenario. We're very well aware there could be many variations to this. But let me go immediately to the last thing that I will be showing before the actual presentation, the demo flow. I'm not going to explain that now, it will take us too long, but what you need to be aware of is that most of the steps that you're going to be seeing in a demonstration are going to be fully automated. All the orange activity is fully automated. That means all portal updates, all corporate updates are automated. We're also automating the generation of digital collection order. We're automating the acceptance and the financing to the supplier, as well as payment reminders to the buyer, and the payment and the reconciliation of that payment against the finance is also fully automated. So there's not that much left. The blue boxes are the ones where there's going to be involvement. The light green boxes are all API related activities. Light green is with CargoX for EBL. Gray is API connectivity to the Trace Original platform of Enigio. But let me get into the demonstration because it's about half an hour that the demonstration takes, and I need to show one slide after this. So the actual demonstration, as I said, I hope this is clear. We're starting the flow from the CargoX platform. So the supplier has received an electronic bill of lading from the carrier and has given access to his bank in order to obtain finance. What you need to remember from this is the reference of the bill of lading number. This is a bill of lading that we've created. It's number 16, the LTDS, etc., 0016 at the end. This is the key metadata from the electronic bill of lading. This is a visual of the bill of lading. So the shipper is digital supplier in UAE, notifying party and the importer is bride buyer, and shipment is from Dubai Jebel Ali port to Felixstowe in the UK using the TDS Spirit vessel. Goods are some TVs. So this is the visualization of the bill of lading. So this is the one you will be seeing throughout the demonstration. The next thing that you will see is, and we'll now go into our back office system, eXiMBills, because I'm explaining we're doing a financing transaction. I quickly want to show you the limits that we've set up, the facility that we've set up to allow this finance to take place. So in our system, the supplier has been giving a bill discount facility under export collections to obtain finance from his bank. This tree is fully configurable in our system, or we can also integrate with the bank's own limits system. So digital supplier, we'll do a quick inquiry, and after this, we'll actually kick off the flow. Yeah. So there's a credit line for digital supplier, and under that, he's got a sub-limit for export collections, and then underneath, a discount facility for receivables financing of bills of exchange under an export collection. But that's just a small introduction to set the scene, that at least you know what is going to happen in the background. We'll now kick off the flow from the exporter side. An export documentary collection starts from the exporter. So we'll be logging into our portal application that we will be using for this demonstration. So I'm going to send a request as an exporter to my bank, and at the same time, I'm going to ask them, can you please provide me finance under this export collection instruction? I'll be using a template to speed up my data entry. So I'm picking up EPU bride buyer. That will default most of the data. I'm just going to change the reference of the export collection for the exporter, EPU TDS. Also remember that one, EPU TDS 5x8. Collection type, we've created new collection types because the same system is used for paper collections and for digital collections. So the one I'll be using is direct to drawee digital. I'm not going to involve a collecting bank because I don't have to, because it's digital handover, no physical handover. $25,000 collection. And here we have our first API with CargoX. Based on the exporter, we can filter out all BLs which the bank has been given access to. So number 16 is visible, and I can then use my API to visualize all the data. So port of loading, port of discharge, all the information on the bill of lading, which is also source information for my export collection. So no rekeying of that information. I can, of course, as the exporter, also visualize that bill of lading that is stored on the CargoX platform inside my port. So straight and seamless integration with CargoX for the bill of lading data. Yeah, you're going to be seeing that a number of times, this same document. So I'm going to continue my collection now. Enter all the other information. Process today, please. That's a leftover from the template. I'm in a hurry. I want to receive my finance ASAP, and I want to receive it into this account. I have to specify the account where I want the proceeds, or if I don't get finance, the proceeds of the bill of lading itself. The identification. We will be using mobile numbers to actually trigger signing API, signing app. So the mobile numbers are going to be used to identify drawer and drawee. There are other methods available, but in this scenario, we're using that. So release goods against acceptance. I'll make it 60 days a tenor. Charge instructions, remitting bank charges, information, more information on the collection. It's a to-order bill of lading. I didn't probably focus on that, but it was a to-order bill of lading. Estimated time of arrival, probably about 2 weeks to go from Dubai to Felixstowe. Shipment from, you see, this information is inherited via the API from the EBL platform. I'm going to release this export collection instruction from the portal. So the corporate, the exporter, is going to give that instruction to his bank, and our back office system is going to receive this instruction in real time, and there will be a dashboard alert to the bank user about this request. So I'm quickly going to authorize this on the portal system. And then I'll go back into eBills, our back office solution, where this transaction and this finance request will appear. So back into eBills, we have a dashboard for received EXCO instructions. All those, the dashboard can be completely configured. But what will happen now is that our system will perform the limit check against the supplier's limit. So it was EPU TDS, which is the third record here, EPU TDS. I'm going to pick that up here. And all the data from the portal is going to be picked up and the bank user can review it. So $25,000. Auto finance has been indicated as yes. That means there is going to be no user intervention on the receivables financing transaction to be done. You can change that, yeah, to manual. 60 days after side, yeah, I'm going to accept that instruction, subject to limit checks, compliance checks, etc. The parties, all that information is retrieved again from the instruction of the customer. UK number for the bride buyer. The remit proceeds also defaulted based on eBills Bank Nostro correspondent in dollar is Citibank. So this is where the funds are going to be credited, and we send a payment reminder 5 days before maturity to the buyer to remind them about payment. Again, the other details of the bill of lading, that's all defaulted from the instruction. The limits, the key thing is at the bottom. This is the full limit tree, but the result of the limit check is pass. As again, we also integrate with the bank system on this, but we've used our limits management system. The reference is 249 at the back. Remember that as well. So that's the export collection instruction. If I release this transaction, because I just cannot send this collection order to the buyer yet. Why not? Because the bill of exchange has not been signed by the drawer. So there's only one transaction from today. I'm picking that up here. And at this point, when I release this, our system is going to generate a digital bill of exchange using Trace Original, and we'll present this digital bill of exchange to the drawer exporter for signing to make it legally valid. So you can go through the information. The blue boxes highlight the changes. If I confirm this, our system will automatically send a notification to the exporter asking him to sign the digital bill of exchange. And that's where you will see the API integration with Trace Original in action. So I go back to our portal, and there's going to be a bank message in the dashboard. We can also do mobile notifications via the icons at the top. But I will see here, if I do a quick look up on my transaction 249 or use my own reference 888. So if I use 249, it's going to show me my export collection. And it says signature required. So if I select this transaction, then the exporter knows your signature is required as the drawer of the bill of exchange. Please click on the sign button to proceed. So remember, we used mobile identification. There are other ways, but this scenario is based on a mobile signature. So this, I have to use I'm using my Belgian phone here, because that's the one linked to the exporter. This is my Belgian phone number. If I continue, I will get a code. I've taken a screenshot of my mobile phone, and the verification code, the OT one-time password, is 698072. If I confirm this, I will be given access to the document. So this is the digital bill of exchange, which is actually a PDF with an embedded structured JSON object to store all the structured information and also to store all the wording to make the EPU, the electronic payment undertaking, fully legal. Document created, all the details. This is the structured information. Agreement parties, who needs to sign, the required signers for the drawee, the required signers for the drawer. That has been pre-agreed in the trade agreement. Of course, is inherited into the collection instruction and then passed into the bill of exchange document. So if I sign this, I will again be asked to enter a one-time password. And a code will be sent not to my Belgian phone number, because for the, so again, sorry, back to my Belgian phone number. The other party is my UK phone. So again, sent to my mobile, 619059. And this is not to get access to the document. I already have that. Now I get access to the signing app. So again, this is one way to get this done. I'm just going to sign this, use signature. And since I'm Belgian and Stella is also a female name, but also a good Belgian beer, I've put in Stella as the supplier, the boss of digital supplier. I submit the signature. This will not only update the digital document, but also update our back office system eXimBills. Here you can see the bill of exchange has been signed, you can see by the drawer. And also in the structured information, there's going to be step number 2 now. There's a signature with a date and a timestamp by Stella supplier who has signed for the drawer. So this part is done. eXimBills has automatically received this information. eXimBills in straight-through processing mode has sent a digital collection order to the buyer. And the buyer is just using email. Well, you'll see it's not just email, but this is a notification via email. But what we do is we embed a secure token inside the email. So the bill of lading, goods have been shipped. This is the export collection reference. And we're saying here, based on the instructions of our customer, the supplier, we send you this collection, this bill of exchange. The key thing is, as soon as you accept the digital bill of exchange, we will automatically transfer ownership of the e-bill of lading to yourselves. When you click on this, normally you would be getting paper and attachments, bill of exchange, bill of lading. We present this in a fully digital format. This is the paper, but just on a web page. It's a secure web page. Of course, I can look at the attachment. Just like I would be looking at paper attachments, I can look at digital attachments. So a fully digital flow. This is the bill of lading, and I can, of course, look at the other side as well, the thing which I'm going to be asked to accept, the bill of exchange. I can look at the bill of exchange. That's the document I just sent from the exporter side. This is the visual picture of it. And at the bottom, you will find all the structured information which can be used for integration purposes. And at the bottom, this is important, that telephone number. For the drawee, I will be using a UK mobile number. And this is the second step on the digital document, the signature by the drawer. So I can actually check that it was correctly signed by the drawer. The rest of the instructions, just like on the letter, the details, the description of the goods, the information on the bill of lading, and the instruction. We will transfer ownership to you against acceptance of a bill of exchange. So that's the digital equivalent of a documentary collection. And of course, the payment instructions, please remit to our account with Citibank, the Nostro account with Citi. The bill of lading history we're visualizing, and I'm going to sign this now. Same process as for the exporter. I have to enter my mobile number, which has to match the one on the original instruction, as in the trade agreement. I will receive a verification code, one-time password, 265532. Again, a screenshot of my UK mobile. Gives me access to the document. I can review the bill of exchange. I can see it has been signed by Stella. And if I want to make a commitment, if I want the bill of lading transferred to me, I'll have to accept this bill of exchange. So I'm going to sign this as drawee this time. So I'm going to sign the document. Again, a verification code, 694190, submitted to my UK mobile. If I continue, I will be given access to the signing app, and I can draw my signature. I've chosen, not a lot of inspiration. I chose Bernard, the buyer, who is the boss of my bright buyer in the UK. Bernard buyer. So, and I'm going to submit this signature. This will create another update where it would be on paper. No, we're writing onto the digital original document, and you can see it there. Both signatures are now present. And again, you can check the structured information. At the bottom, there's going to be a third event, a signature by the drawee. Again, fully automatically, from that signature, eXimBills automatically gets updated, and we will auto-process everything. The finance to the supplier is automated. The sending of the acceptance and finance details to the portal, the supplier, and we've triggered a transfer ownership instruction to CargoX so that the buyer can take ownership of the bill of lading. So the first thing that's happened is, let me do an inquiry to prove to you what's happened by transaction 249. I'm going to do an inquiry on the events on this transaction, and you will see The last one at the bottom is the acceptance event. That's the one I just did. So in the acceptance event, you will be able to see the finance detail because the auto finance flag was set to yes. So on the discount tab, there's the maturity date is 17th of September. That's very relevant for the demo. We're not going to wait until the 17th. Well, it's the 17th of September to continue the demo, but we'll fast forward. This is the information on the discount. The supplier is not receiving $25,000. He is receiving $24,908.89 because we deducted interest. We could deduct more charges, etc., but it's not too bad, I think. He's receiving almost the full amount. The second thing that's happened is we've updated the supplier application, the portal application with the finance details that he knows, yes, my buyer is accepted, I got my money. So I've got my working capital. We're still in the first 15 minutes of actually the entire process. Just imagine if this would be using paper. So let's do an inquiry on the export collection on the supplier side. If I do a lookup on my export collection reference 249, the last event on that transaction after the instruction, the issuance, the last event is going to be the acceptance combined with finance details. So at the bottom, you see there's an event with acceptance and finance details. We could easily create a PDF here, send the PDF to another application that is being used by the corporate or send it via email, whatever, but here we just do a structured message to the supplier, telling him what the maturity date is, the finance details, it depends on whether there's recourse in place, and these are the finance details. So he knows, yes, I will have received $24,908.89 in my account. The last and most important thing that we've done also automatically on eBills is kept our part of the deal. The buyer has accepted the bill of exchange. We're now going to tell him, yes, we are honoring our part of the deal. We're transferring ownership of the EBL to the buyer. So there is going to be evidence of that because CargoX received that instruction, but CargoX automatically generates an EBL update to the buyer. So this is on the email system of the buyer. There will be an envelope received from the bank to tell the buyer, we have kept our part of the deal. You can now inquire on the bill of lading, which we have transferred ownership on. So now I'm going to access the CargoX platform to find the evidence. I'm logging in as the buyer to the CargoX platform with my blockchain key. It's a JSON key file for the buyer. And my bill of lading number 0016 at the end should be there in my inbox. And that is for me the evidence, yes, this digital collection works. So should be there. There it is. Number 0016 has been received in the inbox in an envelope. And you can see the current owner now is Bright Buyer. So the process has worked. The buyer now has possession of the bill of lading. And again, the information, I'll quickly show it again. But that's the last time that you will see it, I think. So this is in fact the process up to the acceptance and the handover, the handshake has taken place. We still need to do the payment, of course. Now, some people may not be interested in this part, but we wanted to include this as well. How are we doing the rest? So the next thing that happens is we're going to do a fast forward to 5 days before the maturity. We're simulating this, and we're going to send a payment reminder to the buyer. So this is an email, payment reminder with his collection, and a link, of course, to the digital bill of exchange to remind him about that he still needs to stick to the payment commitment he's made to pay for that bill of exchange. So he could call this email anytime. He can do this anytime. What we've done is we've had a small event for him to enter his payment reference. This is optional. Yeah? In many cases, you're not going to get that, but at least this way the buyer is aware and he can check again because there is no paper. That's why we say, let's give him a tool to continuously inquire on that collection in a digital way. So this is the collection again with the payment reminder, and he can again look at his bill of exchange. If he has any doubts, he can check his signature at the bottom with the date and the timestamp that he actually digitally signed this document. make sure that he's got to pay this. So this is the bill of exchange. You can then optionally enter his payment reference at any time before the maturity whenever he processes payment. I'm going to do this, but the key thing is going to be the last step that we'll be demonstrating, the actual payment. Because we're also going to show you how we auto-reconcile this, because you need to follow up. You could do a lot of financing, but you've got to reconcile as well. So we're going to simulate a Swift interface after this. We'll quickly give you a view of the event that we've updated on our eBills back office again, because we've received the confirmation from the buyer that he has paid or is going to pay, and he has provided his reference. So I do a lookup again on my collection 249, and the last event will have to be that buyer payment confirmation. Let's quickly show that, and let's get to the payment process. As you remember from the collection instruction, eBills Bank is a remitting bank. The Nostro correspondent of eBills Bank is Citibank. So the funds will have to be credited into eBills Nostro account with Citibank. We're now going to simulate this, because if Citibank receives those funds, Citibank is going to send an MT910, which is a confirmation of credit, to eBills Bank. So we're going to change in this MT910 the reference of the collection, because that's the reference that they will receive. So 249. I'm also going to change tag 20. Now this is a bit technical maybe, but this shows to you what's happening in terms of reconciliation. Based on this message from Citibank to eBills Bank, we can monitor MT910s, pick them up, and see where there's a matching reference with a collection with financing or without financing for that matter. So payment digital collection demo as an instruction. I'm now going to send this Swift message. eBills has a Swift listener. It will pick up this message automatically and process in STP mode. If the balance of the collection is fully utilized, we will close it automatically. We're doing 6 things at the same time automatically in this sequence. We're booking the received funds to settle the finance transaction, reversing liabilities, closing the collection if it was a full payment. We update the supplier to say payment has been made. If there was recourse, you're off the hook. Invalidate, and that's important as well for the buyer. We'll have to invalidate the digital bill of exchange on the notary to tell him this has been paid. So you're going to be seeing most of that now. So we look at the payments event, which has been auto-generated based on the Swift message. So we've received the MT910, that was the last function. So if I check the event structure, the last event is payment received, done by an STP user. If I look at that payment, you will see all the details coming in from the MT910. It was actually a buyer, and Sean will be happy about that. He had an account with Sumitomo in London and clearing the funds via Sumitomo in New York. So payment of the digital collection demo, 25,000, collection balance 0, which means I can auto close. This is the ordering institution, that's Sumitomo in London. Via intermediary, it's dollars, so going through Sumitomo in New York or whatever they wish, and then Sumitomo New York crediting Citibank New York, informing eBills Bank about fund transfer. You can also look at the Swift. This is for the back office people. They say, oh, can I see the Swift message? Yes, the Swift message to prove to you it's been demerged. That was the information I entered, my 249 in tag 21, and the other information on the payment. This could be from November onwards. This can be a MX message, ISO 20022 message. I know it's not an MT2 of food. Well, anyway, it's a separate topic. So what we're going to do now is also update the portal about this payment, and also the supplier, in case there would have been recourse, that also the supplier is aware, yes, the payment has been made. We can actually close this transaction. The bank has got my money. I've got my money. Everyone happy. The only thing we still need to do is to make the buyer happy and digitally invalidate the bill of exchange. So, but that our back office has also done that through an API. We send an invalidation instruction to trace original, and you will see that in the next step. So this is the payment received for the supplier on the portal. And let's head now to the proof of the invalidation, the digital invalidation. If I again go to my email inbox for the buyer, in my inbox, there is a message, digital collection reference 249, bill of exchange invalidated. We will say, thank you, buyer. You've kept your part of the bargain, you've paid. And as a result, we have now invalidated the related bill of exchange. And you can verify this in two ways. You will now see, we have two ways to do that. We're going to show you the public ledger. The trace origin public ledger does not contain any business data, but keeps, of course, an immutable record of everything that's happened. So if I view the public ledger, you will just see the key information, and event number 4 was the invalidation. This is the public ledger, no business data. Now, of course, the buyer wants to see, can I see that it's actually taken place on the actual business document as well? So the bank can show that because it's the bank that has done this. So if I download this bill of exchange and visualize it, I will see after creation, signature of the signature of the drawee, event number 4 on the digital document will be the invalidation, which is the last event, and we've added a small note to confirm that the drawee has paid. So this was, I've got 7 minutes left. This was I've got now 1 slide left, and then I will stop talking, give us a bit of time to still deal with questions. So this was the demonstration. Back to the flow, this is sort of the flow. I won't go through it, it will take too long, but this is a summary of all the steps taking place. I still want to show you something else, because people will probably ask us, do we have to use all those components from China Systems? Now, the reality is that in terms of to achieve this, we're using a back office and a customer portal. The back office, we call it our trade control tower. That is, in our case, of course, a mandatory component, because that is the one dealing with the internal systems of the bank, accounting, effects, risk management, anything inside in the bank. And then we've got also eBills through its dashboards, monitoring all activity on the outside world. Yeah. Now in the demo, you've seen this. Customer enterprise being used by the exporter, we used email with secure tokens on the importer side. Now, obviously, the reality is not all corporates will be using this or that. So what are the options? And that's where we are perfectly able to integrate with, and this is, I've put other, because this is a very dynamic environment. There's going to be other companies in there, but mainly on the I would say on the bill of exchange side, we've also put trade trust, because trade trust, of course, conceptually uses a lot of similar concepts to trace original, both MLETR compliant. We've currently integrated with Enigio because it was very straightforward and easy to do. On the CargoX side, there are, of course, more EBL providers, but here it's a very big world out there. I've even put e-invoicing solutions. Why do I put e-invoicing? That's the last thing I'm going to say. I think about this one. In SCF programs, a lot of, often a trigger, especially in post-shipment finance, a trigger is very often an invoice approval. Now, an invoice approval works very well in a closed ecosystem environment. Why? Because an invoice approval is just a message from the buyer to say to the bank, I've accepted it. However, in an open banking environment where there is no onboarding onto platforms, we believe that that invoice approval could be well replaced in all term invoices for underlying trade transactions. You could use a digital bill of exchange to formalize the acceptance by the buyer, which gives you a very powerful instrument in an open banking environment. And this is where I'll end my plea. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. This is fascinating, and exactly the purpose of the DNI initiative, to show how technologies can be combined in order to bring enhanced value proposition. Certainly the enhanced value proposition for me are thanks to the level of automation that you're bringing. It's not just digitizing a document, it's definitely about structuring and automating a process so that manual interventions are reduced, frictions are reduced, and humans can supervise the process rather than just handle it as they do today. So that has been fascinating. Let's see. And I collected already some requests for your slides, for the recording. This is recorded, so there's no issue. You will be able, as an ITFA member, to access the recording in a couple of days via the ITFA member area. I'm just checking whether anyone on participants has a question. I don't see any question at this stage. So maybe on Sean's side, any remark, thoughts, questions?
Well, I just say it's the first time I've seen this. Unfortunately, hadn't been able to view this before, and it is tremendously compelling. And this is for a relatively simple collection. So you know the possibilities on this are almost endless in terms of the financing you can offer. But what's really compelling here is that it's integrated, as Joel has said, to the front and back office, and that's really what we need. You know, people have lots of good ideas, but actually making them concrete is what really matters to bankers such as myself. And so it's this really tremendous demo. Well done,
Thank you,
Joel.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, and this slide we see is really the illustrates well the mindset of what we're doing on the ITFA FinTech committee in terms of getting technologists to work together, because there is no one single platform or one single piece of technology, even not the top trade finance vendors such as China Systems, that can do it all by themselves. There is a need for integration. There is a need for not just API integration, but process integration that involves API integration, but much more as well. And what we're doing with Sean on the regulatory advocacy side is making sure we add the appropriate regulatory frameworks. Thanks to advocacy, we are coordinating through banks in the various jurisdictions. We expect much from the UK next year, working with ICC UK. Just see here a question from Roberto. We'll read it out loud. What can we as a bank expect in terms of timing for having the EPN ready for use? This is European Bank, I believe. The timing for having the electronic PN, promissory notes.
Well, if I'll let also Sean it off from my point of view, we're using Trace Original as the digital container for bills of exchange. That's what you've seen in this demo. But let me immediately make clear what I've written here. The same technology can be used. The electronic payment undertaking does not only cover the bill of exchange, it also covers the buyer's document to establish his commitment, which is the promissory note. So we could have as well have done this with a promissory note. Instead of presenting a digital bill of exchange for signature, we could have asked, if you want to get transfer of ownership of the bill of lading to the buyer, we could have said, we make it subject to the issuance of a promissory note. The schema, the digital container that we're using is exactly the same one as, just the template is different. I think Sean briefly showed the template. It's the same, it's a different template, but inside the same digital container.
Yeah, that's right, Joel. So I mean, again, Roberto, if you haven't had it, haven't seen it, do download the DNI manual, because you'll see the templates for both of them. The technology is completely adaptable to both kinds of instruments. The three instruments really we're talking about here are bill of lading, bill of exchange, and promissory note, and essentially the same solutions apply to all three documents as we've seen, because they are all negotiable instruments. They're all documents that have a particular status because of the kind of document that they are. You know, either gives a right to payment or right to receive goods, and they're negotiable. So everything that you've seen here and on the Enigio Trace Original, and indeed other platforms. I mean, I've had a number of inquiries since we advertised the work of the UK Law Commission, saying, well, look, I don't actually do finance on my platform at the moment. Could I do it? And the answer is yes. What the law will do is simply to validate what the technology is already doing. And as Joel has very convincingly showed, you can use that, the bills of lading, bills of exchange and promissory notes, as he's just pointed out. So really, it's a tremendous new world there waiting for us, but it does look a lot like the old one. We're just doing things a lot more efficiently and a lot quicker.
Thank you, Joel. And Sean, another question from France, from Julien. Can we have your view on the maturity of the API you have mentioned and the usability today between the different actors in the ecosystem as per your latest slide? Is this working, Joel?
Yes, I can tell you it's working very well. And if the amount of time, and I have to thank my team, it's me presenting this. There's a team behind this, a trade digitalization services team that has done all this work. Yes, it is all working. And that's why we don't mind doing the same demo in a closed environment where you can look under the hood. You've got nothing to hide. The APIs are all published. And that was one of the requirements that we set forward as well. Well, certain things may be changing, you know, but it's all documented, properly documented, and all working. So, and if someone wants to see that and look under the hood, we are happy to arrange such meeting and presentation.
Yes, and that's exactly the next step that we expect you to take if you want to know more about it. It's to get back to the right experts, Joel on the TDS side, China System side, or Enigio on the Trace Original side with Gunnar Collin, who many of you know, or myself on the DNI initiative, if in case you have interest as a vendor or as a bank to involve and do some real work.
And let me again, sorry, at this point, Andre, let me just again, and I have to do it because I'm chair of it, for plug again our conference in Bristol from the 6th to 8th of October. All those people, Joel, Gunnar, and most of the platforms that you've seen on the slides there will be down there. We have dedicated networking rooms at the conference, plus of course the usual networking opportunities. So if you are interested in this, of course, do please reach out to Joel bilaterally. But if you want to see everybody, your opportunity to do that in a fantastic environment is coming up very shortly.
Yes, and we're going to spend the whole morning of Wednesday, October 6th, on the fintech innovations that the two initiatives have delivered on the DNI side, on the TFD side. And this topic indeed will be covered in Bristol in person as well. So I don't see any other question at this stage, but definitely we will be posting again the link to the document that Sean was referring to, the guide to negotiable instruments, the ITFA guide, on our LinkedIn page. So you can find it there. And we will also be informing you once the recording is available. If you need some slides, feel free to reach out directly to Joel. If there is no other question, it remains me to thank both Sean and Joel for enriching this session today and giving us the latest and greatest about the DNI initiative and about the next in-person event in Bristol, indeed, 6th to 8th of October. And wishing you a great end or start of the day, depending on your location. Looking forward definitely to welcome you again on the ITFA webinar. Joel, Sean, thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, ITFA.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to the audience. Bye.